My name is Natalie Cotter, and I'm with the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. Today I'm going to be talking about program participation in the state's Farmland Preservation Program, and it's really important for farmland preservation efforts across the state. Hello again, my name is Natalie Cotter, and I'm here from the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. And I'm going to talk a little bit about program participation in the state's Farmland Preservation Program. And that's going to be through either an agricultural enterprise area, which many of you are pretty familiar with, or through having a certified farmland preservation zoning district. And program participation does make you potentially eligible to claim farmland preservation tax credits. So I'm just going to talk really briefly about the program components and then move into what it actually means to participate. So eligibility requirements, kind of what the tax credits look like, and then move into more specifics on AEAs as well as farmland preservation zoning. And I know I'm the last presentation before lunch, so thank you for bearing with me. So the farmland preservation program has a bunch of different components, and they all really work together to meet local farmland protection goals, as well as support local, regional, and state agricultural economies. I kind of want to highlight very briefly farmland preservation planning. I'm not going to go over that too much in this presentation, but that really lays the groundwork for participation in other areas of the program, including farmland preservation zoning and AEAs. So when I talk about participation in the program, really it's providing you multiple tools to take the next step in preserving your farmland for future agricultural use and having a stake in the community's agricultural future. So when you participate in the program, you're showing that long-term commitment to farming. You're also benefiting the community's soil and water resources, and you are having power to influence future land use decisions in your community. Program participation is completely voluntary. Farmland preservation tax credit that you may be eligible for, I'll go over eligibility requirements in the next slide, is sort of set up on a tiered system. So the more components of the program you choose to participate in, the higher the tax credit. So that first tier at $5 an acre is if your land is located in a designated agricultural enterprise area and you have signed a farmland preservation agreement on your land. That's $5 per acre eligibility. If your land is located in a certified farmland preservation zoning district, you could be eligible for $7.50 per acre. And then if you are owning land in a certified farmland preservation zoning district, as well as a designated agricultural enterprise area, you may be eligible for $10 per acre. So to be eligible to claim that tax credit, there's a few things. First, you must be a Wisconsin resident. That's pretty straightforward. You also, again, must own land in either a certified farmland preservation zoning district or a designated agricultural enterprise area and have signed a farmland preservation agreement on your land. You also must have produced at least $6,000 in gross farm revenue in the past year or $18,000 in the past 3 years. So that is the value of what you're producing on your land, so those farm receipts. You can rent your land out, and what the main producer of the land, that can go towards the requirement. However, rental payments do not count towards that gross farm revenue. If you have land enrolled in CREP, so conservation programs, that can also go towards the gross farm revenue requirement. And then we've talked about this in a few presentations today. Mark kind of covered this. You must also have a certificate of compliance for meeting those state soil and water conservation standards to claim the credit. So the next portion of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little more in depth about AEAs, as well as getting farmland preservation zoning districts certified in your community and what that kind of means. You've seen this map on the right already. This is program participation across the state in the state's Farmland Preservation Program. So the orange is all the AEAs, and the other shaded colors are different zoning districts. So many of you are very familiar with what an agricultural enterprise area is, but for those of you who are not, I'm just going to go over very briefly what that means. So an AEA is something that is a contiguous area of land that's predominantly in agricultural use. It is an area that has been locally identified and locally supported for farmland preservation and continued production in the future, and is designated by the state in response to that locally developed petition. So this is a very community-led process. It's not something the state will ever tell you to do. It would be something that you choose to do. An AEA is also not by itself a land use control, so owning land within an AEA will not impose any additional restrictions on your land use. So the status of the program, right now there are 33 designated AEAs across the state. AEAs were introduced when the Farmland Preservation Program revamped itself in 2009. Right now, they sit at just over 1 million acres. DATCP does have authorization from the state to designate up to 2 million acres in agricultural enterprise areas, so we're about over halfway there. 24 counties participate, as well as 97 towns. It is important to note if you or anyone you know are interested in potentially modifying a current AEA boundary or petitioning for a new AEA, those petitions are due to DATCP June 10th of this year. So existing examples, AEAs, they range in size, location, and predominant agricultural use. We have some AEAs, such as the one up in Bayfield County, Wisconsin, that is just under 3,000 acres. It's fruit farms and orchards. We have others, such as this one in Lafayette County, the southwest lead mine region is over 100,000 acres. Some AEAs focus on dairy, row crops, you name it. They really reflect the diverse agricultural status of the state. So zooming into something you might be more familiar with is the Oconomowoc AEA. It was designated in 2011, so it was one of those first AEAs designated by the state. It covers 2 counties, Dodge and Waukesha, and 2 towns, Ashapin and Oconomowoc. And in the petition, it was identified that the predominant agricultural use was dairy, beef, row crops, and other livestock. So there's some hashed lines right here, and Oconomowoc does have a certified farmland preservation zoning district. So if we remember the tiered tax credits, the southern portion of the AEA would be eligible to claim $10 per acre if they did sign an agreement, and then up here is $5 per acre. So the next steps to consider if you are interested in participating in the program would be to sign an agreement. So you have an AEA designated by the state, and now you are open to potentially signing a farmland preservation agreement on your land, if that is something that sounds of interest. Since 2011, after the first AEAs were designated, there is almost 140,000 acres of land under agreement across the state and over 600 agreements signed. If you're thinking about signing an agreement or are curious what that really means to you, agreements really show a commitment to continue farming the land you own, and eligible landowners with those eligibility requirements I talked about in one of the first slides may sign an agreement within a designated AEA. So agreements are voluntary and they're for 15 years. So when you sign one, you're agreeing to farm your land for the next 15 years. And you must also meet the state soil and water conservation standards. And that includes the nutrient management planning that Mark touched on 2 presentations back. If you do this, you are then eligible to claim the farmland preservation tax credit. If you're not sure if your land is within a designated AEA boundary, just talk to your county and they can start the process of figuring that out, as well as help you with signing an agreement. You can also call DATCP. So here's that tiered tax credit again. With a farmland preservation agreement, you would be eligible for either that $5 or that $10 per acre, again, depending on if you are also owning land within a certified zoning district. So if you are interested in applying for an agreement, you can buzz over to our website at farmlandpreservation.wi.gov. This also has information on other components of the program. If you're interested about learning more, there's webinars, fact sheets, application instructions, things like that. If you're interested in FP agreements, where this red circle is, you just click on that, and it'll take you to a page where you will find application forms as well as application instructions. If you have a farmland preservation agreement that is older and might be nearing expiration, there is an area where you can learn more about modifying an existing agreement. Over here on the right is just showing what the application form will look like if you decide to download that. I also have a few copies of applications with me if you're interested at looking a little more what they look like and what that kind of entails. So the final portion of the presentation, it's almost lunchtime. I'm going to talk about farmland preservation zoning. And I thought this was important to touch on because these program areas do really work hand in hand with each other. So a farmland preservation zoning ordinance is locally crafted and administered, and it seeks to promote agricultural growth, restrict non-ag uses, and limit potential land use conflicts. It must be consistent or more restrictive than the provisions listed in Chapter 91 of the Wisconsin State Statutes, and it can be certified through application to DATCP. Again, here is that map of the Ashpin-Oconomowoc AEA, with Oconomowoc having a certified zoning district in the southern end. Zoning districts in your community are working to implement that farmland preservation plan, so the groundwork to the program and allowing you to participate. When you're looking at forming or mapping an ordinance, you really want to have at least 80% of that land that was planned for farmland preservation should also be zoned for farmland preservation. Landowners with land located in a certified district are also eligible to claim the tax credit. So if you are interested in exploring getting a certified farmland zoning district, and you do not have one, there is a few things you should know. The first question would be, does your political subdivision have general zoning? So for example, Ashpin, I believe, has county zoning. So if that's something they would be interested in exploring, they could get a certified district. It's a good idea to also contact a representative at your local level and just show that there is interest. So program participation, similar to signing an agreement, you must meet the state soil and water conservation standards. So if you are owning land in Oconomowoc and are already meeting the state soil and water conservation standards and getting that $750 tax credit, it might be a good idea to think about signing an agreement to get the higher tax credit. Zoning also allows for a little bit of flexibility. You can choose to claim the credit and participate in the program on a yearly basis. Everyone who is within a zoning district, though, must comply with the standards in the ordinance. And for the last time, you'll see this tax credit tier, so that $750 or the $10 per acre would be what you would be eligible to claim with a certified farmland preservation zoning district. So I buzzed through that very quickly, but thank you for listening, and I'll open it up for questions. Is everyone ready for lunch?
Good job on the presentation.
Thank you. All right.